The conference room felt smaller than Marcus remembered. Or maybe it was just the weight of everything collapsing around him that made the walls seem closer. He sat rigid in the leather chair, his lawyer shuffling papers beside him when the door opened. And there she was, Isabel. The woman he'd promised forever to 6 years ago. The woman he'd pushed away with his ambition and neglect. But something was different. Terribly, wonderfully different. As she turned sideways to settle into her chair, Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The gentle swell beneath her loose cardigan was unmistakable. 7 months, maybe more. His hands went numb. His lawyer was talking something about asset division, but the words dissolved into white noise. All Marcus could see was that curve, that beautiful, devastating curve that changed everything. The baby wasn't his, couldn't be his. They'd been separated for 11 months, living in different states, different worlds, which meant someone else had given her what he never could, his full presence, his time, his heart. And now he was about to sign papers that would sever the last legal thread connecting them, watching her build a future that had no room for him in it. Isabel kept her eyes on the documents before her, but Marcus could see the tremble in her fingers as she reached for the pen. She looked tired, beautiful, but tired, with shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and worries he knew nothing about. When had she stopped wearing her wedding ring? When had he stopped noticing whether she did? "Mr. Chen, if you'll just sign here," his lawyer prompted, sliding the divorce papers across the polished table. Marcus picked up the pen, but his hand wouldn't move. Memories flooded back unbidden. Isabel laughing at their wedding, her head thrown back in pure joy. Isabel crying alone in their bedroom, while he worked late for the 100th night in a row. Isabel quietly packing her bags, saying she couldn't compete with his company for his attention anymore. He'd let her go. Told himself it was for the best, that he wasn't built for marriage, that his work mattered more. What a fool he'd been. "Is there a problem?" Isabel's lawyer asked. An older woman with sharp eyes that seemed to see straight through him. Marcus cleared his throat. "Can we take a break? Just 5 minutes?" Isabel finally looked at him then, really looked at him, and something flickered in her dark eyes. Surprise? Concern? She nodded slowly. The lawyer stepped out, leaving them alone in the conference room. The silence stretched between them like an ocean. "You're pregnant," Marcus said, immediately wincing at how stupid he sounded. "Yes." Her hand moved protectively to her belly, an unconscious gesture that pierced his heart. "I didn't know." "You didn't tell me." "Why would I?" There was no malice in her voice, just a quiet, matter-of-fact tone that hurt worse than anger would have. "You made it clear our marriage was over. You have your company, your success. This is my life now. Who's the father?" The question escaped before he could stop it, and he immediately raised his hand. "I'm sorry. That's none of my business." Isabel looked down at her hands. "His name was David. Was. He died 3 months ago. Car accident." The air left Marcus's lungs. "Isabel, I'm so sorry. He was a teacher. Kind, patient, everything I needed after—" She trailed off. But they both knew what she meant. "After you. We were going to get married after your and my divorce was finalized. He was so excited about the baby." Her voice cracked slightly. He picked out paint colors for the nursery. He was researching the best car seats. And then one night, a drunk driver ran a red light and he was just gone. Marcus felt something crumble inside his chest. "You've been dealing with all of this alone?" "I have friends. My sister helps when she can." Isabel wiped at her eyes quickly. "I don't need pity, Marcus. I just need to finish this process and move on with my life. I have a baby coming in 2 months and I need to be strong." But she didn't look strong. She looked exhausted and scared and like she was barely holding herself together. And Marcus, who'd spent the last 11 months telling himself he was better off alone, suddenly saw everything with crystal clarity. He'd spent years building an empire while neglecting the one person who'd truly loved him. He'd convinced himself that success meant 14-hour days and constant hustle, that love was a distraction from greatness. But sitting here watching Isabel fight back tears while carrying a future she hadn't planned alone, he finally understood. Success without someone to share it with was just an empty trophy. Ambition without love was just elaborate loneliness. "What if we didn't sign?" Marcus heard himself say. Isabel's head snapped up. "What? What if we didn't finalize the divorce?" Marcus, don't be ridiculous. We're not together. We haven't been together in almost a year. You don't even... I know, he interrupted. I know the baby isn't mine. I know you love David. I know I have no right to be anything to you after how I treated our marriage like an inconvenience. He leaned forward, his heart pounding. But Isabel, you shouldn't have to do this alone. You shouldn't have to worry about insurance or hospital bills or how you'll manage when the baby comes while you're recovering. Let me help you. Help me? She laughed, but it was a brittle sound. You want to help me? Where was that instinct when I needed you during our marriage? The accusation hit its mark because it was true. You're right. I was a terrible husband. I prioritized all the wrong things. But seeing you here, knowing you're facing this alone, maybe this is my chance to finally be the person I should have been all along. Not as your husband. I know I lost that right. But as someone who still cares about you, who wants to make sure you and your baby are okay. This is crazy, Isabel whispered, but she hadn't said no. Is it? You need health insurance. Mine is excellent. You need support when the baby comes. You need someone to help with late-night feedings and diaper changes, and all the 1,000 things that come with a newborn. I can do that. Why would you do that? This isn't your child, Marcus. Marcus met her eyes steadily. Because it's yours. And because David should be here to do this, and he's not, and that's unfair and tragic. And because I spent our entire marriage being selfish, and maybe if I can help you through this, I can finally be the kind of person I should have been. Isabel was quiet for a long moment, her hand still resting on her belly. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. You really hurt me, Marcus. When you chose your work over me, over us, every single day, it broke something in me. I know. And I'm not asking you to forgive me or to love me again or to pretend our marriage was something it wasn't. I'm just asking you to let me do one decent thing. Let me be there for you and this baby, no strings attached. If, after the baby is born and you're settled, you still want the divorce, we'll finalize it then, but let me help you through this. Tears spilled down Isabel's cheeks. I'm so scared, Marcus. I'm terrified of doing this alone, of not being enough for this baby, of failing. Without thinking, Marcus moved around the table and knelt beside her chair. You won't be alone, and you won't fail. You're the strongest person I know, even if I was too blind to see it before. When the lawyers returned, they found Marcus and Isabel talking quietly. The divorce papers still unsigned. Marcus's attorney looked confused. But Isabel's lawyer smiled slightly, as if she'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. We're not signing today, Marcus announced. We're going to postpone the divorce proceedings. Over the next 2 months, Marcus showed up in ways he never had during their marriage. He drove Isabel to doctor's appointments and took notes about dilation and contractions. He assembled a crib and painted the nursery a soft yellow because Isabel had decided not to find out the baby's gender. He researched breastfeeding techniques and read parenting books. And when Isabel woke up at 3 in the morning with cravings for pickles and ice cream, he made the 24-hour convenience store run without complaint. He didn't do it for recognition or praise. He did it because it was right, because Isabel deserved support, because somewhere along the way, helping her stopped being about redemption and started being about love, not the passionate romance of their early marriage, but something deeper and more resilient. When Isabel went into labor on a rainy Tuesday morning, Marcus was there holding her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement when she was convinced she couldn't push anymore. And when baby Emma finally arrived, screaming and perfect, Marcus cried, not because he was the father, but because he'd been part of bringing this tiny miracle safely into the world. Watching Isabel cradle her daughter, exhausted and radiant, Marcus knew the truth. Emma would grow up knowing about David, knowing he'd loved her before she was born, knowing his memory would be honored. But she'd also grow up with Marcus there, choosing every day to be present, to show up, to love without condition. 6 months later, when Isabel finally asked if they should finalize the divorce, Marcus simply asked if she was happy. When she whispered yes, still surprised by it, he kissed her forehead and said that was all that mattered. They remarried quietly a year after that, understanding now that love isn't just romance, it's showing up, doing the work, being selfless when selfishness would be easier. Sometimes, Marcus thought, second chances don't look like what we expect. Sometimes they look like frozen moments in conference rooms, like 7-month baby bumps that change everything, like choosing someone else's happiness over your own ego. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they look like a little girl calling you daddy, even though you're not connected by blood but by something stronger. The choice to love every single day, no matter what.